Okay, Pradeep ji, thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care,
Thank
take
you.
care, take care. All right, we are continuing our live broadcast, decoding and trying to understand the big political message. We're joined now by Yogendra Yadav. Pradeep Gupta has just left, so we can change that banner. Namaskar, Yogendra ji. Good to see you. Mixed feelings because you're somebody who's not been a fan of the Aam Aadmi Party, and you may think that they've got their comeuppance, but at the same time you're not a fan of the BJP, and the BJP has won handsomely in Delhi. What are your thoughts right now, Yogendra ji? Hang on, Yogendra ji, I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. Yeah,
No
right.
mixed feelings, Barkha. Actually, it's a setback. It's a setback for Aam Aadmi Party. It's a setback for people like us who are not with Aam Aadmi Party, who have opposed Aam Aadmi Party, but who believed in the possibility of an alternative politics. And it
Hmm.
is a setback for the entire opposition, united or
Hmm.
not so united. It's a setback for that. Because BJP's politics is a politics of total dominance. Not just
Hmm.
election victory, but complete political dominance is what BJP aims at. And there's no doubt that today's victory, victory after 3 decades, has contributed to BJP's quest for political dominance. And that should be a cause for concern. This is not the moment for vicarious pleasure. I mean,
Hmm.
and that's always a silly and petty thought. But
But
today,
also
more so than
human.
ever
But
before.
also human. We're all human. We're not saints.
Yeah, but that's sort of, to try and look at history from one's own personal angle, I've realized over the years is one of the most erroneous ways of looking at developments. So it's a setback for Aam Aadmi Party. It's a setback for Aam Aadmi Party more than what the data would suggest.
Why do you say that?
Going strictly
Ji.
by numbers, Aam Aadmi Party is just behind by 5 percentage points, which is not
Correct.
such a major thing. They still have more than 20 MLAs. Losing one election after three victories is not such an unknown thing. Parties do come back, parties bounce back by. It's not the kind of the nature of defeat in quantitative terms is not something that it cannot recover from. It's not unprecedented. It is not some major electoral wave. But the problem is, given the kind of party Aam Aadmi Party is, given its complete election centeredness, given its complete dependence on Delhi, and given its complete identification with the personality of Arvind Kejriwal,
That's
this
right.
defeat is a moral shattering defeat for Aam Aadmi Party. Uh, I worry for Aam Aadmi Party's future because my sense is that BJP will not stop by just defeating them electorally. This campaign will continue after the election. There would be an attempt, I don't know when and I don't know exactly how, but I anticipate an attempt to break the party. And
Yeah.
given the fact that Aam Aadmi Party has gotten rid of all those people, all those leaders, all those many workers who stood with the party for some principles, for some ideas, these difficult times are times which can be very dangerous for Aam Aadmi Party, because if there is an ED raid or if there is a CBI raid, if there's a threat, who would stand by this party? So that's
Hmm.
the challenge. The challenge also comes because Gujarat, I think Aam Aadmi Party is unlikely to repeat the limited success that it had last time.
Hmm.
Haryana is the attempt, there's no breakthrough in Haryana. So now everything hangs on Punjab 2027. And the news that you get from Punjab is not very good for Aam Aadmi Party already. And Punjabis are not so patient to put up with bad government.
Yeah.
So Aam Aadmi Party really faces a crisis which is much bigger than the crisis of one electoral defeat. But I said it's also a setback for everyone who believes in the possibility of alternative politics, because after all, Aam Aadmi Party began as a great experiment in alternative politics. For that kind of an experiment to come to this situation where first it got rid of the idea of alternatives. The idea of ethical politics is something that was given up around 2015-16.
Hmm.
Then it was about good governance, coming with smart policies.
Yeah.
Then it got reduced to one or two critical popular schemes. I don't call them really. These are good welfare measures for
Hmm.
ordinary people, but everything hinged just on that, overlooking overall structural changes, overlooking other things that you possibly could. And in the belief that people would turn a blind eye to serious allegations of corruption, to serious misdoings that were happening. So that dream has kind of looks extinguished, at least in the present form that it has taken. Aam Aadmi
Hmm.
Party as a vehicle
Would
and as
it
a
would it
carrier
would
of
it have been
alternative
different
politics.
had sorry, I was didn't mean to interrupt, but would it have been different had Arvind Kejriwal at least won his own seat? You see, what's happened is that all of the three prominent faces of the AAP, minus Atishi, who managed to retain her seat, Manish Sisodia, Satyendra Jain, and Arvind Kejriwal himself. Now, all of these three are people who face jail time. Uh, there was clearly no sympathy for them. All three lost, right? Would what you're describing as the kind of crisis moment for AAP have been had been different if Kejriwal had won at least his own seat?
Indeed, but I must begin by giving him credit for something because the day someone is defeated, the easiest thing in the world is to kick that fellow around.
Correct, correct.
We must give him credit for the fact that he did not move away from New Delhi. New Delhi is not a typical Aam Aadmi Party seat. After all, Arvind went there. Just it was an audacious attempt to take on Sheila Dikshit.
Yeah.
Uh, and this is not one of the strongholds of Aam Aadmi Party. Manish Sisodia did move away from his seat, but Arvind Kejriwal did not. I would give him some credit for that. But it was a very risky move because he could lose, which he did. And his loss, there's so much identification of the party with his persona now,
Yeah.
even more than other supreme leader dominated parties,
Hmm.
that his personal defeat would look like a shattering defeat for the party completely, overlooking the fact that they have a decent vote share, they have leaders, they have other things. But that's the risk the party runs. Arvind has concentrated everything so much into his persona. And it was Arvind, no one else, who said, this election is a referendum on my honesty. So he wanted a certificate from
Yeah.
people that I'm
And
honest, that Delhi liquor scam was not a scam. Now, once he converts everything into that kind of a contest, then, well, you have to face the consequences of the verdict.
yeah, yeah. Can we talk about the Congress before we come to the BJP? You see, a number of Congress leaders on our channel this morning have been very happy that Kejriwal has lost. Literally, like it's almost like glee. And somebody described the Congress as a de facto ally of the BJP in this election. Now, the Congress had a dilemma here. The Congress could either seek to rebuild itself with a very similar competing base that the Aam Aadmi Party enjoys, or seek to keep the BJP out. But the BJP's win has been so significantly large that I'm not sure that even if the Congress and AAP had been on the same side, this outcome would have been different.
Absolutely. I haven't seen Congress leaders expressing glee. I've not been monitoring
Yeah,
television or something,
yeah,
but if they did, I feel sorry about that. That's that's exactly what I mean by vicarious pleasure.
yeah,
This is not the moment for vicarious pleasure. I think it would be unfair to see Congress as an ally of the BJP because I think, in all fairness, in ideological terms, uh, Aam Aadmi Party was much closer to the BJP, but we'll come to that
yeah.
than the Congress was. The dilemma for Congress in Delhi is this. There are large number of Muslims and many Dalits in Delhi who sympathize with the Congress, who would like to give their votes to Congress, but they would consider the Congress only when they know the Congress is in contest. Bring some votes to me, and then I'll give you
Mm,
my vote. This would be a
that's
classic
right.
situation of a Muslim. Muslims
Yeah.
have voted in large numbers for Aam Aadmi Party, not because they love Aam Aadmi Party. I think it is with deep resentment that they have voted for Aam Aadmi Party. They would have
Mm,
preferred Congress. But
mm,
Congress was not in contest.
mm,
And in order to be in contest, you cannot be active only in the last 6 months. In all fairness, Congress had this yatra
mm-hmm.
organized, a good sort of serious yatra. But where was Congress in the last 5 years? Was Congress able to put up a serious alternative? So Congress has a potential base in Delhi. That
Hmm.
base may have expanded today. In case Aam Aadmi Party has a meltdown, then Congress has suddenly a space to build on. But today's result does not show so. Today's result is nothing to feel proud of. It is definitely not something that Congress can celebrate.
Hmm. What does this do to the opposition politics? There has been a lot of talk about the divisions within the opposition ranks, the end of the India bloc that was formed with much fanfare for the Lok Sabha verdict. What happens now to opposition politics?
As I said, today's verdict is a setback for the entire opposition.
Hmm.
That's how the opposition should see it, rather than this little one-upmanship games that we
Hmm.
see. Because BJP is into total dominance, and everyone, सबका number आएगा इसमें, कोई नहीं बचेगा इससे. So that's
Hmm.
important. Having said it, I think it must also be registered that today's verdict opens an opportunity for the opposition.
Hmm.
uh, तुम महाराष्ट्र हार गए तो हम दिल्ली हार गए. So there's no one-upmanship anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone is in the same boat. We better come together. Time to put our heads together. Time to say, okay, stop this little one-upmanship. Farooq Abdullah has said something to that effect today.
Yeah.
Irrespective of that, I,
I
I,
mean,
I agree with
Omar
you.
Abdullah went on Twitter to say, "Or lado aapas mein." It was his son,
Sorry,
Omar
sorry.
Abdullah.
I
Huh?
should have said Omar
Yeah,
Abdullah,
yeah.
not
He
Farooq.
said
Sorry.
he said, "Or lado aapas mein, or lado aapas mein."
So while I agree with your analysis that Congress and Aam Aadmi parties coming together alone would not have reversed this victory. We cannot just do mathematical addition.
That's right.
The fact
Yeah.
is that many of the votes that came to Congress would not have gone to the Aam Aadmi party. These were anti-Aam Aadmi party votes that
Mm,
came to Congress. They may not have gone to if they had an alliance. So I agree with you. We cannot say that the result is only because the opposition was not united. But the fact is that post Maharashtra, India coalition has not looked like a coalition.
mm,
Post Maharashtra, the internal squabbling, little one up men game, and general lethargy has taken over. That's exactly what the BJP needs and wants. So, yes, it's time. And so, in a sense, this rude shock may be an opportunity for all of them to now come together and say, forget it, we'll not play these small games with each other. Let's focus on the big thing. And there is a big lesson as well, Barkha, something that we
mm,
need to talk about. Today's verdict tells you one thing clearly. You cannot take on the BJP and defeat the BJP by believing in BJP's own ideology, which is exactly what Aam Aadmi Party did. And you must have spoken to Aam Aadmi Party leaders who would tell you, देखो अब बीजेपी की आइडियोलॉजी के फ्रेम के अंदर ही पॉलिटिक्स करनी पड़ेगी, इसके बाहर तो देयर इज नो. So you
mm,
have to be more Hindutva than BJP. If they say Jai Shri Ram, you have to say Jai Hanuman. And the absolutely shocking silence of Aam Aadmi Party during Delhi riots, their
mm,
conduct during the bulldozers operations in Delhi, all
mm,
these things basically indicated, and Aam Aadmi Party, this was not a lapse on their part. This was a strategy. The strategy was that we would be more pro-Hindu than the BJP. We will compete with BJP in being more pro-Hindu. You remember
mm,
this whole farcical thing about Rohingyas, the few hundred Rohingyas that you have in Delhi, the
mm,
complete farce that was played out. What was the point? The point was to say we would be more anti-Rohingya than BJP.
mm.
Now, today's verdict shows you the limits to that too clever by half strategy. You cannot take on the BJP by following BJP's own ideology. If
But
you may succeed in
at
one,
the same time, sorry to interrupt, at the same time, you need your own idiom to take on the BJP, an idiom that
and
has resonance with people at large, not just people who already believe what you believe. You have to be able
absolutely,
to
Bakha.
communicate with people who don't think like you.
Barkha, we've spoken about that
Yes,
several times, and
yes,
I've repeatedly said secular idiom has lost touch with the people and so on and so forth.
yeah,
So you have to take on BJP's majoritarian politics. You have to take on their ideology. You have to have your own ideology, which cannot merely be reiteration of secular progressive language that has been used in the past. Uh, but it has to be a serious alternative to the BJP. You
that's true.
cannot follow the BJP. Soft Hindutva is not going to win you elections. That's one thing the entire opposition has learned, I hope. So there is an opportunity for opposition to come together in this moment of defeat, share the defeat rather than score those little points vis-a-vis each other. Share the defeat and see the big picture ahead.
Let's talk about what you call the BJP's pursuing complete political dominance. The BJP has actually very distinctly changed its blueprint for elections after the Lok Sabha knock to its majority, right? And the template is there to see. Sparing use of the prime minister. He is no longer the front face, dominant face of every assembly election. The RSS is back in full force. The organization is driving the election, not the individual. There's no individual centric campaign. Delhi, they didn't even bother necessarily projecting one individual. And in Delhi, very interestingly, it wasn't a typical BJP campaign. It wasn't a Hindu Muslim campaign. So something is shifting in the BJP's blueprint as it pursues this political dominance.
That's the point, Barkha. BJP learns from its defeat. The opposition does not learn either from defeat or from victory. They do not realize what has given them partial victory, and they do not see what has given them defeat. They talk about election commission. I also talk about election commission because election commission's conduct is reprehensible. This is just disgraceful. But is that the only reason why they are losing elections? Something more has to be done. So it looks like a classic difference between what used to be the Australian cricket team a decade or 2 decades ago, and what used to be the Indian team a decade or 2 decades ago.
Yeah,
Australian team had a strategy. They could ask their best batsmen to come four down, or they could ask their bowler to open the innings.
yeah,
They could ask their best player to sit out for a match.
Hmm.
They had a strategy, and they executed that strategy ruthlessly. This is what the BJP does. I'm no admirer of BJP. I mean, this is no secret.
yeah,
But I do admire their capacity as an organization to carry out their own. They have a strategy to begin with, and they have
hmm.
a capacity to carry out that strategy, and they have a capacity to align individual ambitions with organizational ambitions. All organizations are driven by individual ambitions. Political organizations particularly, most of the people on the ground are political entrepreneurs who are looking for
Yeah,
their political career.
yeah.
BJP has found a way to align their personal ambitions and drive with organizational gains. The opposition, on the other hand, mostly suffers from this. This does not apply to Aam Aadmi Party. Aam Aadmi Party is not a complacent party. Aam Aadmi Party has also had a strategy and has executed its own strategy,
Hmm.
which has flopped. So it's time to realize that that strategy does not work. But opposition in general does not show the capacity to learn from mistakes, has not demonstrated capacity to put its house in order. And this is the moment to do so.
Can I ask you towards the end about something that worked for the opposition in the Lok Sabha was the campaign around the constitution, um, and linking it to rights and the everyday lived experience, particularly of historically oppressed communities. But since then, we have actually seen large sections of the Dalit vote return to the BJP in different assembly elections. How do you understand that? How do you understand that? Why did that campaign? Why did the constitution as a symbol not sustain for the opposition?
Barkha, it's an example of what we were discussing just a moment ago. BJP learns from mistakes. BJP knew that being seen to be anti-constitution has really worked against it. So what do we see? The prime minister bowing down to
Bowing.
constitution every time. If you go to Pragati Maidan now for the book fair, there is a little selfie point not with Modi's image. It is now with constitution. So BJP's Hum Bharat ke log, BJP has kept, this was a secular slogan in the anti-AACA struggle. BJP appropriates it.
Hmm.
BJP learns from its mistakes. And the opposition thinks that the same language in the same metaphor would continue to work for them. No, sir, situation has changed. And constitution was an issue, was not probably the decisive issue. It was a serious issue for the first time in country's history in 2024. If you want the constitution to be an issue, and I do believe that BJP continues to be a big threat to constitutional Republic of India, but in order to communicate this to the people, I have to translate that constitution and its implications and threat in an ordinary day language to people's everyday concerns rather than this abstract thing called constitution. It has to be translated into forest rights. It has to be translated into reservation. It has to be translated into everyday security for minority. It has to be translated into young men and women's right to marry whoever they want. So you have to translate the constitution. The opposition isn't doing a good job of it right now.
A last question. What would you hope the opposition does now? What would you hope they do now?
One, come together, present to the country once again that India coalition is alive and kicking. Number one. Number two, come up with some kind of broad agenda, some five things you would do as a country. Rahul Gandhi spoke the other day and said, if the president's address was to be delivered, this is what the presidential address should look like.
Hmm.
Now, this is one thing for Rahul Gandhi to say this in the parliament as leader
Hmm.
of opposition. But I, as a citizen of this country, would like to see the entire India coalition come up with some 4 or 5 points they believe in, they want to do in this country. I don't know that yet. And number three, having coordination on the floor of the parliament is not enough. Please have coordination on streets of this country.
Hmm.
Farmers all over the country are planning to relaunch the entire agitation on MSP. Would the entire opposition gather their energies and stand behind them rather than try to capture them? Just stand behind them, extend support to such things. So, leaders talk about Adani. I think it's a very major issue. But have you seen the entire opposition do something about it? I would like them to be on the street
But
to
the
do
opposition doesn't
coordinated
agree
action.
on the issue, no? The opposition doesn't agree on the Adani issue.
That's the challenge. That's the challenge. So you have to agree. You have to agree on some alternative formulations. You have to agree on some action agenda, and then you have to execute it on the ground.
Hmm.
Merely seat adjustments 4 weeks before the election is not opposition unity. Opposition unity has to be unity in opposing anti-constitutional moves, anti-democratic moves, anti-people move in this country. Now you have the budget.
Hmm.
Will the opposition come up with some salient points and say, we don't want this, we don't want this, and go to people on the street? That's important.
Well, I think if this doesn't jolt the opposition, I don't know what will, because since the Lok Sabha verdict, Yogendra ji, the Congress in particular has underperformed in every and or been defeated in every state election, even the ones it thought it would win. And other than Jammu and Kashmir, where the National Conference was able to form the government, there hasn't been a win. Oh, Jharkhand, there hasn't been
Jharkhand.
a win.
Again,
Yeah, there
JMM
has.
did better there. Yeah.
Correct. So I this is really and this is the seat of power. Delhi has its own symbolism. Let's not hide from that. Thank you, Yogendra Yadav. Sure, it's been a long day. We'll talk again soon. Thank you. Namaskar. Take care. And that brings us to the close of our marathon election run. We've been live with you for close to 8 hours now. In case you were hiding under a rock, the BJP is returning to form the government in a dramatic win after a gap of 27 years. The last time the BJP was at the helm of government in Delhi is pretty much like a couple of years after I just started journalism. It was 1998. Sushma Swaraj was then chief minister. The big question now is whether Parvesh Verma, the son of Sahib Singh Verma, will be the next chief minister for being the giant killer who defeated Arvind Kejriwal. And as you just heard Yogendra Yadav say, For the Aam Aadmi Party, despite a spirited campaign, this is now an existential crisis. With Arvind Kejriwal having lost his own seat, the biggest challenge for the AAP now is to hold its flock together. For the BJP has demonstrated agility, its capacity to adapt, its capacity to change and shift gears in changed circumstances and changing and shifting electorates. The budget bump may be one factor that explains the Delhi win, but the fact that BJP was able to take Delhi in an election where there wasn't any one singular issue, where they didn't field a chief ministerial contender, shows that the BJP's organizational machinery is like none other. Well, for now, I think we're allowed to take a bit of a break. Thank you for staying with us through the day, and keep watching the Mojo Story from the entire team. Thank you. Take care and see you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.